Welcome to the Daily Coffee Pro by Map It Forward, friends. Today on the podcast, we're talking about the reality of 2020 for coffee business owners. This is a reality that needs to be understood not just by business owners, but it needs to be understood by employees of coffee businesses as well. 2020 has been a lifting of the veil, and the veil that I'm referring to is this kind of unspoken truths of the coffee industry that are a consequence of the low barrier to entry for our industry. And that low barrier to entry has come to bite us on the butt, so to speak. When you have such a low barrier to entry to anything, what that means is that the consequence of not requiring people to have qualifications and knowledge about how certain things should be done are kind of like kicking the can down the road, so that hopefully eventually the lack of experience and the lack of knowledge never ends up coming to bite them. 2020 is the year where it did happen. And what you're coming to see is a revelation of what was underneath that veil for our industry. And we're starting to see a number of businesses fail for a variety of reasons. And we're seeing that there's I want to say it this way, there are going to be different waves of why businesses fail. We've seen that happen in 2020 so far. A number of businesses failed immediately when the pandemic had shutdowns. And as we're now, let's say 4 months in, it's July, so March, April, May, June, July, so 5 months in, we're starting to see businesses fail for different reasons. And it's important for us to understand this stuff. Please know that the reason I talk about this stuff, as uncomfortable as it may seem, is not because I am poking fun or celebrating the demise of these businesses. I want a better industry. I want a more successful industry. I want an industry that sees that every person that opens a business has a real solid chance at success. Because as a business owner myself, I understand exactly how much blood, sweat, and tears goes into building a small business, whether you've got experience or not. And it's just devastating to see a business owner lose their business. So if we can find a way to see what's going on right now and build a better industry moving forward, a more profitable industry, an industry that looks after its employees and its value chain. If we can find a way to do that, I think we should. And I'm an optimist from that perspective, in that I think that we have a lot of learning to do right now, a lot of observing to do right now. Excuse me. And in doing that and seeing what this moment has to offer us, we can reassess and make better decisions moving into the future. I think that the trajectory of our industry has been accelerated, so that things that we perhaps would have needed to do in 10 years from now have arrived as possibilities to happen in this moment. And that's exciting. What we're seeing right now is a reckoning of businesses that were pretending to be successful. Some of them were being operated by people who were doing some dodgy stuff that great Instagram photos and great branding was being able to hide. So, look, let's talk now about what could potentially happen in the evolution of the next 12 to 24 months, and what's going to be some of the mitigating factors, or the determining factors, of of how we could anticipate what will happen for businesses over this time. So, because of the low barrier to entry into our industry, what you started to see was people like me 20 years ago who had a corporate job and felt that the corporate industry was just soulless. I got out of the corporate world and decided that I wanted to do music and coffee. And so I got a job in a cafe and decided that I was passionate about learning how to be of service in the coffee industry. I loved coffee. I loved the experience of the cafe, and I was going to forge a career there. And I was also going to start my music career, and I did that. I did both of those concurrently and have found success in both of those things. I decided to leave the music business so that I could go on and do Elixir specialty coffee. But one thing that I knew after I became a barista, I knew that I didn't have what it took. I also didn't want to own a cafe because I was asking questions of cafe owners and they were telling me I could see how miserable they were all the time. They loved the idea of what they were doing, but you'd hear things like, I never get to be on the machine anymore. I never get to do the coffee rush hours. That's kind of the thing in Australia, is you get hammered during these coffee rushes and it's invigorating. And I found that more and more business owners were not enjoying what they were doing. And when you talk to them about a pay rise, they'd say to you, I'm not making anywhere near enough money to be able to give you like a $2 an hour pay rise. It's not going to happen. You can have maybe 20 cents an hour. So I'd start to probe into that. And what I came to realize is they are running on such slim margins that it's simply not possible for them to have enough peace of mind and freedom to anticipate getting out from under the amount of debt that they had to accrue in order to open this business or buy this business in the first place. So they had, over the years, I've seen more and more people who were like me wanting to leave corporate. They've got some money saved up. They're under the misguided view that it's easy to run a cafe and that there's great profit margins in it because all they're doing is a cost of goods analysis or profit analysis, not the cost of running business. And realizing that the profit margins are so slim, whenever I tell people that, even to today when I tell people that good, well-run cafes are running at 3%, they don't believe me. So you have this low barrier to entry that lets anybody in based on whether they've got access to cash or not. And that's almost negligent. That's almost... And I'm a fan of free markets. I'm a fan of the freedom to do whatever the fuck you want. I'm a big advocate for that. But the consequence of that is that a lot of these people from the corporate world, or baristas who are sick of getting paid really shit money, deciding, well, if my boss is making all of this money, why don't I just open my own coffee shop, cafe, roasting business, and like clean up myself? Well, it's because there's this undercurrent, this undertone of people that are in our industry that have ended up on the other side of that decision and think that they're the only ones that aren't doing well. And they don't want to talk openly about it because what if everybody else is running really good businesses and making great profit margins? And I'll tell you now, you're not alone. I've spoken to hundreds and hundreds of business owners in the last few years since we started this brand. Hundreds and hundreds. And they all say the same thing. If somebody had have told me it was going to be this hard, I probably wouldn't have done it. I would have gone and done something else. the other thing that they all say, I didn't realize that it was this slim pickings. Everybody thinks that there's so much money in coffee. I didn't anticipate it was going to be this hard. So, if you are thinking about opening a business, please take a look at what is really involved in doing it. So these are some of the reasons that businesses are failing right now, and will go on failing the deeper we get into this crisis. Okay, so when the crisis happened, the first businesses to kind of fall over were kind of this last in, first out kind of thing. People who had just opened their businesses, hadn't established a customer loyalty relationship whereby people really wanted to support their opening. And what ended up happening is that they immediately fell under the weight of something like that. Now, I'm not going to use a coffee business as an example. I'll use another industry example simply because I don't want to use names on the podcast. But another brand that is in the process of failing because it opened right at the pandemic is that brand Quibi. So Quibi was set to do really great things, but it launched at the time that the pandemic broke, and they think that it's not going to end up lasting the test of time. So there definitely is this last in, first out. So if you were a very recent business to open, it's likely that very quickly as the pandemic has evolved over the last few months, you've had to close your doors. The next reason that caused businesses to close very quickly is if the people who were running the business were unaware of they were financially illiterate about their business. And what that means is if you were unaware of how to read your profit and loss statement, if you were unaware of how to understand your profit margins and your cash flow statements and your balance sheets, then you were probably unaware that you were running at such slim margins. And so what I see happen again and again is businesses think that because they've got a lot of money coming in, that they are not, that they're making much more money than they're actually making. And what they end up doing is spending far more than they have access to. An example of that is taking care of everybody, far more than you have the ability to take care of them. So I saw one business owner turn around and say, everybody gets a $3 an hour pay increase. And when it resulted in him closing, when I asked him why he gave them that increase, he said it just felt like it was the fair thing to do. And I agree, it feels like the fair thing to do. But if you're not making those decisions, understanding that you haven't got access to the $3 an hour, $3 extra an hour per employee, what ends up happening is that you're going to run your business into the ground. You're not going to be able to pay your bills and you're going to end up having to close. So understanding and being financially literate is an important part of running your business. I keep saying it on this podcast, but being financially illiterate has resulted in many businesses closing. The next wave of people that will close, and we're starting to see that happen now, is businesses that are cash poor. So if you were a business that was VC funded, venture capital funded, and they were the cash cow that was pumping money into your survival, they were going for a long-term strategy, or being associated with their brand was bringing them clout, and now everything's fallen over and they've pulled that money. Once that money goes away, Your business is self-sustaining. And what we're starting to see is that as that veil has been lifted, you're starting to see the businesses that were VC funded. And that's money that comes from venture capitalists, people who have money that want to invest and pump money into other people's businesses. And if those businesses end up doing very well, those venture capitalists end up doing well. And they do this for a number of reasons. Some of it is brand association. Others is because there's an intention to eventually sell those big brands to big corporations. None of those things happen with the anticipation that COVID-19 is going to turn up or that 2020 is going to turn up. And a lot of that VC funding has been pulled from these businesses, and those businesses have been left to fend for themselves. If you're a business who was financially, even if you were financially literate, but you were getting all this VC money, you're going to learn pretty quickly that unless you have other cash reserves or assets that you can sell in a market where everybody is in the same boat and trying to sell the same thing as what you're trying to sell, you're going to find yourself in deep shit very quickly. To my mind, that's the next round. From what I can see, that's the next round of businesses that are going to fail over the next 12 months. The cash is going to dry up. Governments are going to, then they only have a limited reserve of money that they should be spending on bailing people out. Because long term, this means we all have to bail our own governments out with higher taxes and things like that. So if you are one of those businesses, what I would be doing right now is finding a way to get financially literate very quickly. And look, a couple of hours with your accountant, provided that your books have been done. A couple of hours with your accountant to get them to help you understand, how do I know how much money I'm making? How do I know how much money I'm losing? And this should be apparent if you've done your taxes for your company over the last couple of years. You'll know where your position is. And then get them to teach you how to do a cost breakdown analysis of your products. You'll understand where you're losing money, and you can stop ordering those things. You can stop offering those products, and then go about finding more profitable ways of running the business so that you can increase your cash reserves. Keep as many people employed as possible, but run as lean a ship as possible. Stop doing the stuff that makes no sense. So doing things to make other people like you as a company that are costing you more money than what the return on the investment of that person liking you. So for example, giving away a bunch of free shit. People want to support your business right now. Offering free shipping on stuff when it doesn't make any sense to offer free shipping on stuff because it means you're going to cop a loss. Don't do it. Run a responsible business right now. Then the wave after that, and what I think is going to be the final kind of stressor on the industry's back, is there's a massive financial crash coming. And when that happens and bailouts stop happening and stimulus checks stop coming, your customers are going to run out of money. Some of them, a lot of them, depending on the area that your business is based. And what that means is less people spending on affordable luxuries. And coffee is an affordable luxury. There is an alternative for the ways that people can experience that. They can start brewing at home. So if you're not anticipating that kind of stuff, you're going to end up losing your business. So even if you're running a great business right now, if you're not anticipating that your customers are going to run out of money, or at least have less money to play with, then that is, I think, the final thing that's going to be what shuts the doors for a lot of businesses over the next couple of years. So please start running leaner ships. Start getting financially literate on where your books actually stand, and start making smart decisions that look after you. This is not kind of the business as usual time where you'll have time to recover if you make decisions that create a loss. Your distance into the future is not guaranteed. You have to be proactive in increasing the runway that you have to survival as a business. I hope that's been helpful, friends. That went a little longer than I thought it would, but I do hope it's been helpful. Peace, love, and peanut butter. Have an amazing rest of your day.